My dear friends, I want to speak with you today about something that may challenge everything you believe about yourself, yet it holds the key to the abundance that is rightfully yours. You see, there comes a moment in every soul's journey when we must face a profound truth. The person you think you are is not the person you were meant to become. I have worked with countless individuals over the years, and I have witnessed the same pattern time and again. People come to me feeling stuck, frustrated, unable to manifest the prosperity, love, or success they desire. They speak the right affirmations, they visualize, they pray, yet the demonstrations they seek remain elusive. And when I look deeper, I always find the same root cause. They are trying to pour new wine into old wineskins, as the Master taught us. They are attempting to create a new life while clinging desperately to an old identity that no longer serves them. Your old identity, my friends, is like a heavy coat you've been wearing for so long that you've forgotten you can take it off. This coat was woven from the threads of past experiences, childhood conditioning, societal expectations, and the countless times you told yourself, "This is just who I am." But I am here to tell you today that this identity is not your truth. It is your limitation. When I first began my work with the metaphysical laws, I too had to face this death of my old self. I had identified myself as someone who struggled, someone who had to work hard for every blessing, someone who was not quite worthy of the highest and best. These beliefs were so deeply embedded in my consciousness that they felt like absolute truth. But the divine intelligence within me began to whisper a different story, and I had to choose. Would I cling to the familiar misery of my old identity, or would I have the courage to let it die? The word death frightens most people, but in the spiritual realm, death is always followed by resurrection. What I am asking you to do is not to destroy yourself, but to allow the false self, the limited self, to dissolve so that your true self, your divine self, can emerge. This is the self that was created in the image and likeness of God, the self that has unlimited access to the kingdom of heaven, which is the realm of perfect ideas and infinite supply. Your old identity speaks a very specific language. It says things like, "I never have enough money. Good things don't happen to people like me. I'm too old to change. I don't deserve happiness. I'm not smart enough. I always struggle with relationships." These statements feel true because you have repeated them so often that they have become the very foundation of who you think you are. But I tell you now, these are not truths. They are habits of thought that have crystallized into what appears to be reality. The universal law of mind, which governs all manifestation, responds not to your words alone, but to the consciousness behind those words. When you speak an affirmation while holding onto an old identity that contradicts that affirmation, you create a house divided against itself, which cannot stand. You cannot affirm prosperity while identifying as someone who is poor. You cannot claim perfect health while seeing yourself as someone who is always sick. You cannot call forth love while believing you are unlovable. I remember a woman who came to me several years ago. She had been affirming prosperity for months, attending every metaphysical lecture, reading every book on abundance, yet her financial situation remained unchanged. When we spoke, I could hear the prosperity affirmations on her lips, but I could feel the poverty consciousness in her heart. She had built her entire identity around being the struggling single mother, the one who sacrificed everything for others, the one who couldn't catch a break. Her affirmations were like seeds thrown on concrete. They could not take root because the soil of her consciousness was hardened by years of identifying with lack. I said to her, as I say to you now, you must be willing to let that woman die. She has served her purpose, but she cannot take you where you want to go. This is not about denial or rejecting your experiences. This is about understanding that you are not your experiences. You are the consciousness that can choose to create new experiences. The old identity feeds on familiar patterns. It loves the drama of struggle because struggle feels like identity. It whispers, if I'm not struggling, who am I? If I'm not the victim of circumstances, what is my story? If I'm not the one who has to work twice as hard for half as much, what makes me special? These questions reveal how deeply we can become attached to our limitations, how we can mistake our wounds for our worth. But I want you to understand something profound. Your true identity has nothing to do with your circumstances. Your true identity is that you are a perfect idea in divine mind, created with infinite potential, blessed with dominion over every condition in your life. You are not your bank account, your relationship status, your job title, your past mistakes, or your current challenges. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and every condition in your life is subject to the power of your awakened consciousness. The process of letting your old identity die is not violent, or traumatic. It is gentle, like a snake shedding its skin when it has outgrown it. The snake does not mourn the old skin. It feels relief and expansion. Similarly, when you release the limited ideas you have held about yourself, you will feel a sense of freedom that is indescribable. This death must be complete. You cannot keep one foot in the old identity and one foot in the new. I have seen people who are willing to release some limiting beliefs but cling to others that feel too frightening to let go. They will affirm abundance but hold on to the identity of being a humble person who doesn't need much. They will claim perfect health but maintain the identity of being someone who has always been sensitive, or someone with a family history of illness. They will seek love but protect themselves by identifying as someone who has been hurt before, or someone who is better off alone. Every aspect of the old identity that you preserve becomes a limit on your demonstration. It is like trying to fill a bucket that has holes in the bottom. The universe may pour abundant blessings toward you, but they leak out through the cracks in your consciousness. The beautiful truth is that as your old identity dies, it makes space for something magnificent to be born. Nature abhors a vacuum, and consciousness is no different. As you release the false ideas about who you are, your true divine nature begins to emerge naturally, like a flower that was always waiting beneath the soil. Your new identity is not something you have to create or manufacture. It already exists in the mind of God. You are simply removing the veils that have hidden it from view. This new identity knows its oneness with infinite supply. It knows that every good thing is seeking it, just as it is seeking every good thing. It knows that there is no lack in God's universe, only the appearance of lack created by limited thinking. When you embody this new identity, your words carry a different vibration. When you say, I am prospered, it is not hopeful, thinking it is a recognition of what is already true in the spiritual realm. When you declare, perfect love flows through me and to me, you are not trying to convince yourself, you are acknowledging your divine nature. When you affirm, divine intelligence guides my every step, you speak from the knowing that this is your natural state of being. I want to share with you the story of a man who truly understood this principle. He had identified for years as someone who was unlucky in business, someone who couldn't seem to catch the right opportunities. Every venture he attempted seemed to confirm this identity. But when he came to understand the need to let this old self die, he made a radical decision. He wrote down every limiting belief he held about himself and business, and then he performed a ceremony where he burned that list, declaring that those ideas no longer had any power over him. But more importantly, he stopped telling the old stories. When people asked about his business history, instead of reciting his familiar tale of struggles and setbacks, he would say, I am a successful businessman guided by divine intelligence. Initially, this felt uncomfortable, even dishonest, because it contradicted his old identity. But he persisted, and gradually, his consciousness began to shift. Within 6 months, opportunities began appearing that he had never noticed before. Business partnerships formed effortlessly. Investors approached him with proposals. The very same market that had seemed hostile to him before now welcomed him with open arms. Nothing in his external world had changed except his identity, but that change transformed everything. This is the power of identity transformation. When you truly embody a new identity, the universe must respond to match that vibration. It cannot do otherwise, because there is only one law, and that law is absolute and impersonal. It responds to what you truly believe yourself to be, not what you hope to become. The resistance you feel when I suggest letting your old identity die is natural, but it is not wisdom, it is fear. The ego mind, which is the keeper of the old identity, will present you with 1,000 reasons why you should not change. It will tell you that you are being unrealistic, that you should be grateful for what you have, that change is dangerous, that you might lose the love of people who are comfortable with your limitations. But I ask you to consider this. What if the very thing you fear to lose is the thing that is blocking your good? What if the identity you cling to so desperately is the very prison that keeps you from the freedom you seek? The old identity is often built around being needed for your struggles, rather than loved for your joy. People may have become accustomed to you playing a certain role-y struggler, the caretaker, the victim, the one who never quite succeeds. When you begin to change, some may resist your transformation because it threatens their own limited identities. But you must love yourself enough to disappoint those who prefer your limitations to your liberation. I have learned that true compassion sometimes requires disappointing people's expectations. When you step into your divine identity, you give others permission to do the same. You become a living demonstration that transformation is possible, that no one has to remain trapped in old patterns simply because they have become familiar. The process of identity death is not a one-time event, it is an ongoing practice. Every day, you must choose who you will be. Will you be the person defined by yesterday's limitations, or will you be the person aligned with today's infinite possibilities? Each moment offers you the choice to respond from your old identity, or from your divine nature. Pay attention to the language you use about yourself. Notice when you say things like, I always, I never, I can't, I'm not the type of person who. These phrases are the voice of your old identity speaking, trying to maintain its grip on your consciousness. When you catch yourself speaking from limitation, pause and ask, who would I be if this limitation were not true? How would my divine self respond to this situation? Your divine identity does not struggle, it flows. It does not force, it allows. It does not lack, it knows abundance as its natural state. It does not fear, it trusts the perfect outworking of divine love. When you align with this truth, your entire life begins to reorganize itself around this new vibration. I want you to understand that your old identity was never your enemy. It was simply a stage in your evolution. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve in order to become a butterfly, your limited self must be transformed in order for your unlimited self to emerge. The caterpillar does not become a better caterpillar, it becomes something entirely different, something that can soar where it once could only crawl. This transformation requires faith, not blind belief, but spiritual knowing. You must have faith that there is more to you than what appears on the surface. You must trust that the intelligence that created you has equipped you with everything necessary for your highest expression. You must believe that your desires for abundance, love, health, and success are not random wishes but spiritual impulses drawing you toward your destiny. The death of your old identity is really the birth of your authentic self. This authentic self has been waiting patiently beneath the layers of conditioning and false beliefs, ready to emerge the moment you stop holding on to what never served you anyway. This self knows no lack because it is one with the source of all supply. This self knows no loneliness because it is connected to all life. This self knows no limitation because it is made in the image of the limitless. When you embody this identity, your prayers change. Instead of begging for what you need, you give thanks for what is already yours in divine mind. Instead of asking God to fix your problems, you recognize that in spiritual truth, there are no problems, only opportunities for greater demonstrations of divine power. Instead of pleading for abundance, you claim your inheritance as a child of the Most High. Your old identity saw abundance as something external that you had to pursue, capture, and hold on to. Your divine identity knows that abundance is your very nature. It flows through you and as you, because you are an expression of the infinitely abundant source. This shift in understanding changes everything. You stop chasing prosperity and start embodying it. You stop seeking love and start being love. You stop hoping for success and start knowing your divine right to excel. The practical implications of this transformation are profound. When you identify as someone who is divinely prospered, you make different decisions. You invest in yourself because you know you are worth investing in. You create value because you understand that you are valuable. You expect good things because you know that good is your spiritual inheritance. When you identify as someone who is divinely loved, you stop settling for relationships that diminish you. You attract people who see your worth because you see it first. You give from fullness rather than neediness because you know that love is infinite and flowing through you constantly. When you identify as someone who is divinely guided, you stop making decisions from fear and start making them from wisdom. You trust your intuition because you know it is connected to infinite intelligence. You take inspired action because you understand that you are a co-creator with the divine. This is not positive thinking, this is identity alignment. Positive thinking tries to overlay good thoughts on top of a limited identity. Identity alignment transforms the very foundation of who you know yourself to be. When your identity changes, your thoughts change automatically, because they arise from a new consciousness. I have watched thousands of people transform their lives through this principle, and I can tell you that the changes are often dramatic and swift. When someone truly lets go of their old identity and embraces their divine nature, demonstrations begin to appear that seem miraculous to those who do not understand the law. But there are no miracles in God's universe, only the natural outworking of spiritual law. When your consciousness is aligned with truth, truth must manifest in your experience. This is not a matter of deserving or earning it. It is a matter of becoming conscious of what has always been yours by divine right. Your old identity believes in effort, struggle, and gradual improvement. Your divine identity knows that all good exists now in the realm of divine ideas, waiting to be claimed and experienced. The difference between poverty and prosperity, sickness and health, loneliness and love, is not found in external conditions. It is found in the shift from one identity to another. This is why I encourage you to stop trying to improve your conditions and start transforming your consciousness. Conditions are effects, not causes. When you change at the level of identity, conditions must change to match your new state of being. This is law, and law cannot be broken. The death of your old identity requires courage, but it is the courage to be who you really are rather than who you have pretended to be. It is the courage to claim your divine inheritance rather than settling for the crumbs of limited thinking. It is the courage to disappoint those who prefer your limitations rather than inspire them with your transformation. As we come to the close of our time together today, I want you to make a decision. Will you continue to live from the identity that has brought you to where you are now? Or will you have the courage to let that identity die so that your true self can be born? Will you keep telling the old stories that limit your good? Or will you begin speaking from the consciousness of your divine nature? Remember, my dear friends, you are not trying to become something you are not. You are finally allowing yourself to be who you have always been in the mind of God. Your abundance is not coming to you from somewhere else. It is emerging from within you as you align with your true identity. Your old identity was never the real you. was simply a costume you wore while you learned the lessons you needed to learn. Now it is time to remove that costume and step into the light of your authentic self. This self knows no lack, fears no future, and doubts no good thing. This self is your true identity, and when you embody it fully, all the abundance you have ever desired will flow to you as naturally as water flows to the sea. The choice is yours, and the time is now. Let the old die, and let the new be born. Your abundant life is waiting for you to claim it, and it all begins with the courage to be who you really are.